Hey guys, Dissler Magic here, and the pre-release is right around the corner, so I thought, what a perfect time to make a list of the best cards for sealed, specifically. So if you see these cards in your pool, do not overlook them. They might be better than you think. Also, I'm not including any mythics or rares because that's too obvious, and your odds of pulling anything I would say in this video are really bad. Well, then the odds of it being on color with your pool at the time, just forget it. So yeah, oh, surprise, rares and mythics are good. Duh. Also, just for flexibility reasons, I know this is more of a problem in draft than sealed, but it's still there in sealed. I'm not including any dual color cards because the probability of it being on color with your pool is ridiculously low. Now with guild themed seeded packs, okay, but I mean, if it's on color with your guild and it's a good card, then play it. Duh, I don't need to tell you that. So with those two eliminated, we are down to actually quite a few cards. So first up, we got Angelic Exaltation. So it's a 4-cost enchantment, very difficult to remove in sealed. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So a lot of times creatures win games, in fact almost every game, and a lot of the time as well, a single flyer can win the game, which this would help with, and also you tend to just have a line of creatures staring at their line of creatures, and if either one of you swings, you're going to lose everything. Well, this fixes that, so they're just going to have to chump block until they run out of creatures as soon as this drops, so this is a really good card. Next up, Arrestor Deal, one of the absolute best cards in this entire list. It's +2/+2 until end of turn to any one creature, instant speed, 1 cost. So there's your removal. I would consider this a removal spell because you're gonna cast it in the middle of combat and kill something, probably. So you swing with your 4/4, they block with their 5/5, and boom, there you go. I mean, if they're smart, they'd let it through if they suspect that something's, going on, but even then. So it's very reliable removal. Also, addendum, if you cast a spell during your main phase, the creature gains flying. So this is like Mighty Leap on steroids. So to have that option, if it's a 3/3 vanilla creature, boom, that's 5 damage in the air that they knew about at the very last second. I mean, that could be lethal. So this is a 1-cost instant speed game winner that also functions as a removal spell. Absolutely crazy. If you pull this and you're playing white, run it. Next up is Clamor Shaman. It's a 3-cost 1/1, so a little bit sensitive, but I mean, people don't have that much, tuned damage. It's not like Is It Drakes. So it dies to everything, but it does have Riot, so it could have 2 toughness and 2 attack, which I would recommend. And then whenever it attacks, target creature an opponent controls can't block this turn. So you could activate that over and over and over, and he'll effectively let himself through in some cases, but otherwise, if they've got one giant creature that you can't deal with, oh no, you're done swinging now, what are you going to do? Well, the creature's basically gone if you've got this shaman in play, because you're going to tap it, or not tap it, but just make it not able to block every single time you swing. So it does take their biggest, baddest creature out of combat every single turn, which is very valuable. Just make sure you drop this into the right deck because the damage output of this thing is negligible. If you're trying to out-creature them, this is not how you do it. The rest of your deck has to be pretty good to fit one of these in it. Next up, Consigned to the Pit. This is a 6-cost sorcery speed removal spell. Also, it only targets creatures. So it also deals 2 damage to that creature's controller. Cool. This is just draft and sealed trash. It's filler, but we're playing sealed. So you're probably going to get to 6, and any semblance of removal, run it. You remove their biggest threat, you will win. I mean, it's just removal is one of the absolute top priorities in sealed. So don't write this off as, wow, what a absolute garbage overcosted pile of useless crap. You're correct, but you're going to get to 6 and it removes a creature. 6 is insane, so do make sure that your entire deck doesn't get too high cost. Next up, Dead Revels. It's a 4-cost sorcery with some creepy artwork. It has Spectacle 2, which is wonderful, and return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So it's kind of like drawing 2 extra cards, guaranteeing that they're creatures. Oh, and also you get to handpick them. And also, it's something good enough that it has been put in the graveyard at some point for some reason. That's pretty good, and then being able to possibly pay 2 for this is just crazy. So yeah, making your opponent kill stuff twice when it's really hard to kill stuff, especially, outside of combat. Yeah, this is definitely pretty good. So next up, Enraged Ceratok, or as I like to call it, Steel Leaf Champion Jr., because it's a 4/4 for 4, and it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. So they're going to have to block with something important, and it might die. You might have boost ambush. This is just good. Just the fact that this is like partially situationally unblockable while also doing 4 damage for 4 mana. Wow, this thing's going to be damn good. This could single-handedly win a game if it doesn't eat a removal spell. So next up we got Essence Capture. I don't love that it's double blue, but hey, counter target creature spell, put a 1/1 counter and up to one target creature you control. So they're probably about to bring out the biggest, baddest, high-costest thing right on curve. Now they aren't, and one of your creatures just got bigger. That is a very dangerous combination. The next 3 turns after this, you might be able to just swing away and deal a buttload of damage or cost them a lot of creatures. The only problem is it's blue, which isn't known for its giant creatures, so you know how much mileage will you really get, but if you put it in a Simic deck, oh yeah. Next up, Eyes Everywhere. Oh my gosh, I love this. Now, if you put this in your deck, it does technically nothing, so make sure that you do have enough creatures in your deck. With blue especially, you can't have it all be tricks and draw and removal, manipulation, all that. Like, at the end of the day, you have to actually win the game. You can control somebody all you want and screw with them, but you gotta do 20 damage or you're not gonna win. So don't make that mistake, but that said, at the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1, so there you go. I mean, you're just gonna go through your entire 40 card little teeny tiny deck at double the speed once you have enough lands, toss lands to the bottom. I mean, scry 1 at every upkeep for free is amazing. And then you can pay 6 and you get it in Bolus's Clutches. Well, isn't that fun? Exchange control of this enchantment and target non-land permanent. Activate this only at sorcery speed. So they bring out something that you finally can't deal with. Take it. Now, unfortunately, you have to give them this, which is going to accelerate, them to probably, honestly, a removal spell to remove what you just stole. But who cares? In the meantime, you're going to be hitting them in the face with it. This helps you so much with consistency and getting crappy draws out of the way, and crappy draws will get you killed at sealed. And then it has an emergency backup plan. I absolutely love it. It is very much 2 cards in 1, and that is very important. Next up, Gore Clan Wrecker. This is a 2/2 for 4 with Riot, so not everybody's first choice, but guess what? It has Menace, and you could probably make it enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 the vast majority of the time. Menace is hilarious because it requires 2 creatures to block it. That means you get double the mileage out of a boost spell. I mean, basically any combat tricks turn into a 2-for-1 special. And if they only have 1 creature in play, hey, swing away. It's unblockable. So don't underestimate this and just go for 100% pure, damage speed rush, because you're probably not going to get like a turn 4, turn 5 blitz deck out of your pool. This is a more methodical, strategic, it's going to get through a lot. 3 damage every single turn. Boy, that adds up quick kind of thing. Next up, Gift of Strength. Not only is that artwork freaking awesome, but also +3/+3 at instant speed and gains reach. So they think they're in the clear with a flyer. Nope, it's dead. They think they're in the clear when you're swinging with your 1/1. Nope, whatever they blocked it with is dead. Oh, they think they can get away with swinging with a 5/5. Nope, it's dead. Guys in sealed, this is a removal spell. Plain and simple. But if they let something to, it's also a finisher. Next up, Humongulous, which is a humongous homunculus. It is a 5 cost with only 2 damage, so don't, cripple yourself on a blue deck's damage output like I just warned you before, because I've done this multiple times. But it's a 2/5 with hexproof. Nothing is getting past this except for a flyer. They're not removing it, it's just going to stand in the middle of the road and block traffic for the rest of the game. That is extremely funny to me. I mean, this is a 100% purely defensive card, but you get a lot of mileage out of it. This is better than some, bounce your opponent's creature back to hand. Oh boy, well, 2 turns later it's back and swinging. No, this will shut down anything with an attack power of 4 or lower on the ground. Simple as that. That hexproof part is just nuts too. I mean, there are way better cards in this, mostly turtles, but this is good. If you're trying to do some kind of recurring thing, that will buy you some time. Next up, Azov Enforcer. It's a 2-cost 1/2 with Death Touch and Afterlife 1. I just absolutely love that because it'll stop anything. They could swing with a 7/7. Well, now they really can't because of your piddly little 2-cost. That will kill it. And then after it's killed, you get a flyer, so you're going to start doing aerial damage. I mean, it's really just self-evident. This is just plain good. Next up, Azov Racketeers. This is a 5-cost 3/2, but whenever it deals combat damage to a player, which might not be easy around the time where you have 5 mana, but you never know, that player discards a card, also Afterlife 2. So if they bamboozle you with a little combat ambush, oh no, my big discard engine died. Oh, that's right, now I can do 2 damage to them in the air every single turn. The funny thing is this in a Rakdos deck would be absolutely insane. So normally this wouldn't really be all that good in a deck, but your opponents tend to hold things in their hand a lot longer than they normally would in a normal constructed game because it's sealed. things are higher cost, they're slower. You can't drop a 5 cost and a 4 cost on the same turn, usually, and that's probably what's stuck in your hand. So you will start costing them late game win cons with this thing if you can consistently swing. I don't think I'd even bother putting this in a deck that doesn't have a lot of removal, though, because a 3-2 isn't getting through anything. And the problem with this is, well, if you could swing away because there's nothing in the way, I think there are better things that would win the game faster for 5 mana, but this is still pretty good. Next up, Prowling Caracal. This is on the list because it's a cat. Just kidding. It's also on the list because it's 3 damage for 2 mana. Do not underestimate 3 damage for 2 mana in Sealed, especially if you're going first. They will have nothing in play, and all of a sudden you drop out this, and it's 3 damage over and over and over and over and over until they chump block it with something and probably lose it, or bring out, a wall or something extremely unexpected. I mean, it's just trouble. I mean, late game it does nothing, so hopefully it shows up in your opening hand. I mean, it could block like a 5-3 and kill it, so it's not, completely useless. But early game, I mean, having a couple cards that just step on the gas, they can take out half your opponent's life total before they can even blink, basically. The funniest part is if they're like forced to use like a really expensive like 4-cost removal or kill spell or whatever on this. So next up we got Rally to Battle, no big surprise here. It's a 4-cost instant and it's only +1/+3, but it's all creatures and you untap them. So the untap part puts it a little bit over. The +1, I mean, that only takes it from, it would have been like a 5/5 for 5/5 trade and now it's not. Otherwise it's like, it's a 2/2 versus a 5/5. Well, +1 ain't going to do anything. I mean, that's why Sure Strike is +3 in First Strike. They really want you to kill that thing. So +1 is virtually nothing, making this, basically a pointless defensive-only card, except you untap creatures. So you can swing out, and they're like, well, I'm going to kill you on the counter swing. Boom, devastating. And plus, the fact that you would almost always use this card on defense, or I should say during the Declare Blockers phase on your opponent's turn, you can do all kinds of stuff with like double blocking and just, wreck their stuff. You will take everything they care about on the battlefield, put it all in a big old pile, and smash it. Also, you could make this be lethal damage on a swing. If they're like, I'll let these 2 through. Okay, 2 extra damage, now you're dead. It's a little narrow, but hey, I think it's worth putting in. A lot of people look at this and be like, well, that's crap. That's just an overpriced charge. Yeah, kinda, but it would go a lot further in Sealed than you think. Next up, Silhana Wayfinder. It's a 2/1 for 2, and when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or a land card from among them and put it on top of your library. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So I wish it was to hand, but it would be a little bit too good then. 2/1 for 2 is okay, whatever, okay. A 1-to-1 ratio on damage to mana cost is never bad. But that just ups the consistency. Yeah, it's a 1 and done, but like at least it's not a 1/1 that costs 3, because those 1 and dones are basically useless in combat and might as well have just been a spell. So early game, hey, it's a 2 damage body on the field. Cool. And then you could also, if you're kind of land screwed, grab a specific color land in some cases. There's a lot of fixing he can do, obviously. Or if you're land flooded, he'll go get a creature, whatever. And then late game, you can just get some piddly little crap you don't need out of the way. Also, not everybody realizes this. You could choose to decline all 4 of them. It says you may reveal one and put it on top of your library. If you have a qualifying land and a qualifying creature, you don't have to pick either of them. You also don't have to tell your opponent if you whiffed or not. So if you got 2 creatures and 2 lands and you don't need either because they're too small and you have too many lands, get them all out of the way. I mean, it's only a 40-card deck and it's late game at that point. So this is extremely useful at all times. Definitely include this if you pull it. And next up, we've got Simic Locket. I mean, I just basically put it as a placeholder for all of the lockets. Early to mid-game ramp, late game card draw. That's exactly what you need in Sealed. Not much more to say about that one. Next up, Skatewing Spy. It's a 2/3/4/4, and it does have Adapt 2, which, okay, that's a little steep for 6. But each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it has flying. So this is almost exclusively in a Simic or maybe some weird 3-color Gruul Simic hybrid deck. Basically any deck that runs counters, now every single creature basically is flying. This would be hard to line up, but I mean, that people at Sealed and Draft like to do the whole ha ha ha, I went all flyers, ha ha ha. It's a stupid gimmick. If they manage to win with it, you certainly shouldn't shake their hand or pat them on the back. It's one of those stupid, dirty, cheap tactics that everybody hates. And it's also almost impossible to pull off because, I mean, you're just not going to pull that many flyers, and if you do, they're probably not your first choice and not that great, and probably your mana curve's a disaster. So if you want the power of that deck with also the option to actually run things that aren't flying, here you go. So basically this just automatically turns your counter deck into an all flyers deck, and you could win the turn that this comes in. So be careful what you drop it into, but this could be single-handedly game winning, which is why it's on this list. Next up, Skewer the Critics. It's a lightning bolt. What more do I need to say about that? It hits anything, it's a finisher, it's removal. Sorcery speed, and it might cost 3, so it's not a lightning bolt, but it's still a lightning bolt. Next up is Sky Tether. I like it because it's not really removal, but it kind of is. Like, it'll stop you from dying. It's at least that level of removal. So for 1 whole mana, a creature can no longer attack you. So enchant creature, it gains defender, so it can't attack, and it loses flying. You really still have to watch out for it when you're swinging because it can still block. So that's huge, but I mean, it's also 1 mana. It's not great. It's basically built for an all flyers deck, but I mean, if you really needed to get something to stop hitting you, this is one way to do it for 1 mana. So getting them to stop hitting you for 1 mana and then using the rest of your mana to summon something better to also turn around the game is probably better than just blowing 5 mana on some removal spell. It depends though, it's very situational. So next up we got Stoney Strength. It's an instant that says put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control, untap that creature. So it gets a permanent boost, not a temporary boost, which is pretty damn good for instant speed 1 mana. And then, ta-da, you can block with it. It's like a defensive-only ambush, kind of. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from casting this in the middle of combat and using it as a +1/+1 ambush, but +1/+1 isn't very much. But then again, this is only 1 mana, so to use this even defensively, you only need 1 mana open, which is pretty reasonable. This is like a middle-range reliable removal spell, but also if their biggest creature is 4/4 and your biggest creature is now 5/5, they have a problem. They either have to chump and, maybe lose 2 creatures, maybe they don't even have 2 creatures, whatever. It's usually just biggest creature wins, so you guys know what I mean. Making a creature 1 bigger for the entire rest of the game, pretty scary. Pretty effective on offense and defense. Next up, we've got Storm Strike. It's an instant. Target creature gets +1 attack and gains first strike until end of turn. Scry 1. I wish it was drop the scry, give me +2. In fact, I wish it was just sure strike instead. Well, +1 and first strike, that is dangerous. That can just absolutely KO a creature because it doesn't matter what its attack power is, only its toughness. The scry 1 is nice, and technically this could be a finisher if they let something through and thought they were going to be at 1 life. That's a bit of a stretch, but every boost ambush combat trick pretty much you could say that about. Next up, Summary Judgment. We got Judge Judy dropping the pimp slap on this guy. So it's an instant 2-cost white, and it deals 3 damage to target tapped creature. Addendum, if you cast a spell during your main phase, it deals 5 damage to that creature instead, which will take down just about anything. And the best thing is, it's just like Seal Away. You could do it at instant speed in the middle of combat, or you could just take the hit, block whatever you're going to do. It's still tapped during your entire next turn, including your next 2 main phases. So it has the wonderful flexibility to be cast whenever you want. This is extremely reliable removal at instant speed the majority of the time for 2 mana. I mean, that is just amazing. Next up, okay, it is technically a 2-color spell, but Thrash is just that damn good, and you could put this in a Rakdos deck and just forget about green, forget about the right side. So I'm mostly talking about Thrash. It's an instant speed 2 hybrid. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. So it's force fight without the fighting, it's just direct damage, and also it can nuke a planeswalker. This is one of the best cards in the set, let alone in sealed. And on the right, I mean, for 4 mana sorcery speed, you can create a 4/4 beast with trample. Oh boy, who cares? Next up, Twilight Panther, aka, oh, who's a cute little kitty? Not this thing, because it's a 1/2 for 1 and it has Death Touch if you pay 1 black. So to make this worthwhile, you pretty much would be having to run black. I mean, a 1/2 for 1 isn't like terrible, but it's really not great either. Ooh, it can kill 1/1s specifically, and that's it. That's why the Death Touch is important. It's one of those, okay, he's got 1 black mana open, crap, I can't swing with my 7/7 or I'm gonna lose it. Also makes it awfully hard for this thing to get blocked. I mean, yeah, it's only 1 damage, but it's also only 1 mana, so it's pretty good. And I knew we were getting to the end of the alphabet here because that was the last one. So hopefully a lot of these weren't really on your radar necessarily. They wouldn't necessarily be like first picks in a draft. But honestly, some of them should be. Removal is very important, and the majority of these were removal, I think. Or they were just better than they seem in the specific context of sealed, which is very, very different than constructed. Just keep that in mind. So hopefully everyone does well at the pre-release. I will see you guys next video.